been around
Oh,
for
he
a
even
while.
got scuff marks on it. Even got scuff
You
marks
sent me a small
on the
envelope.
armchairs.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
to
'cause
say,
they
you
pushed
have
it
a
so
heavy
hard
hand on
under
that
the
gavel.
Carfax.
I like the gavel.
You
This
do,
is-
huh?
This is the only thing in my life that
I
makes
know,
me
I
feel like I have power.
Wow.
You
He's
haven't
got
met
5
my-
seconds to
you
start
haven't met
exercising.
my kids, have you?
Yes. Watch out.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call our regular meeting of the South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, February 10th to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes. Do we have any comments about the minutes? Everyone read the minutes? We can accept them by consensus if that's your desire. Good? We're good. All right. We're not voting on anything, so I don't need to seat anybody for anything, right? Okay. Public participation? I don't think so. There wouldn't be anyone on the phone. Then let's get right into it. We have a special treat. We have Michelle is going to share some information with us. Some information that was provided to us. Now, I got my packet today, so there's a chance that you may not have gotten it yet, but
So, this was a presentation I had put together originally for the Fair Rent and Housing Committee as part of their charges to do some affordable housing promotion. So I thought it would be helpful to have them have the background. So a lot of this is background information related to affordable housing, the 830G, some of the law, things like that. So I'm not gonna read it to you. That's why I kind of gave you a hard copy of it so you could follow along. But I did want to get into, so we can get into, you can see how it's calculated, some of the things that we talk about a little bit. And then we're gonna shift gears, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the new housing law. The promise document from CROG is coming out later this week. I did talk to them last week about it. What I have to present you tonight is some information. I went to a seminar a couple weeks ago, and it was a very lengthy deck of slides. I kind of picked and chose some to just kind of wet your whistle on what the law is about. There's some things that are a little bit more critical, time sensitive than other things, and just kind of highlight those. I did provide you with this document, which is something CROG is very proud of. It's a very great flow chart that will come very meaningful as time goes on to make sure you know deadlines and things like that. So I'm going to get right into it. I want it to be as informative as possible. I tend to talk fast, so slow me down, but I don't want to bore you to death either. So questions are welcome. I don't know if you want to wait till after we get going or.
Acronyms that I don't know what they mean. They're tossed around a lot.
Okay, so
Like,
we're
what's
gonna,
COG, OPM?
okay, well, we're gonna start with
Okay.
this first.
Okay.
We'll get into this afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when we get to that, I'll be glad to get to those.
Michelle, just, this is all being recorded, right?
Correct, this will be is being televised, and it will be out on
Okay.
our website
For
as
the
well.
commissioners that aren't here, they'll have a chance to.
They'll have a chance, yep, and this will all be, record. So, what I kinda wanna just talk a little bit about is definitions, some of the things that this commission has done to support affordable housing, the Fair Rent Commission, what their role is briefly, our current status, and then some of the things that are, kinda on the horizon, things like that. So that's kinda what we're gonna review tonight. So affordable housing, we've heard this defined many times before, but it's, 30% of the annual income is a typical definition of affordable housing. It gets very defined in our state statutes under 830G law, which the 830G law is the affordable housing law that every community is subject to. In a nutshell, it says that you have to have 10% of your housing affordable as defined through the state statute. We're gonna get to how we qualify for those affordable units a little later on. Or you are subject to an 830G application, and then the town is more in a position of defending their decision rather than the applicant having to defend a denial. So that's kind of the long and short of the 830G, but the law does go on and 10% if you haven't qualified for a moratorium. Now, South Windsor, some of you recall, we did qualify for a 4-year moratorium. What that meant is we had created enough affordable housing units over a certain period of time that we documented it all to the state, and they gave us 4 years where we were not subject to the 830G law. We still could have 830G applications, but we weren't subject to the legal part of it, that we had to accept them. That has come and gone. That was October 2020 to 2024. So we came and went with our moratorium, and we are now back subject to the 830G law. I will tell you, although you're going to see later on, we've approved some units of affordable. We have yet to have any certificate of occupancies on any new affordable units since that time. So as far as trying to qualify for another one, we're behind the 8 ball on that. So we won't focus on that part. We're just, I always look at it as like, what are we doing right now to move forward? And that's what we're doing.
I have a few questions, but would you like me to?
Yeah, why don't we wait and we'll get to a little bit further along. We'll get to them,
Okay.
okay? So what the 830G law does is it goes into some definitions of what an assisted housing development is. The best example I can give you of that is the Metro Realty development that's going up on 240 Deming. That qualifies as an assisted housing. So there's some government money involved in it. Or what they call a set-aside development. A set-aside development is when a developer comes in, proposes an 830G application, and he's meeting the law by having a certain percentage of the units or for the 80%, certain percentage or the 50%. So, basically the law defines on how you have to do your unit counts, right? What kind of folks you have to be qualifying in your units. The set-aside part of it is there are some non-affordable units that kind of defray the cost of affordable. So that's what you've seen. I think, Steffi, you mentioned some that you've been reading about in the paper lately. Those typically are set aside that we're seeing in communities around us right now that are, I see some denials going on and some approvals going on for that. So at this point, Mark, if you want to talk about the law, if you have a question before I go on, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, what confused me, if it's affordable housing, then it's 8-30G, and it says 25%. But if it's set aside, then it's 830 without the G, and it's 30% of the housing.
I think there may be some confusion in me not putting the G. The G should always be there, because it's 830G is the law, okay?
Because it's got two different.
Maybe you and I can look at that afterwards and
Okay,
clarify
no, I
that,
just
yeah.
wondered if there was a
Yeah.
simple
Yeah, no,
answer.
I'd have to look at it a little bit closer than,
Okay.
But
we don't realm into that too often, unfortunately.
One other question, and when it says income is a percent of the area, is the area South Windsor?
Yeah, it'll be South Windsor, yeah, there's the Hartford region and then there's South Windsor numbers too. So
But which?
we would be using the, again, it depends on if you're applying the law or if you're applying our regulations. Our regulations require you to do the South Windsor because we're not doing an 830G, but if you're doing an 830G law, I think it's a Hartford region you'd have to do. So there's different numbers that you would be looking at. When and if you ever to see an 830G proposal come in, part of that would be a document as far as their affordable procedure, what their document is, and it would spell all that out very clearly for you, what kind of units are for what kind of offering, that kind of thing. That would all have to be part of their 830G application, okay? When were to come in.
So one of the things that I found a little confusing when I read through this, the 30% number has to do with income.
It's always been said that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing, right? That's always been a number that's been out there. That's what is affordable.
But in this case, 30% or less than of their annual income. So there's that number. The 20% applies to the cost of the housing. So if a normal cost of a housing is $100,000, then $80,000 would be an affordable house in that development.
So, yeah, so how, and we had this in our affordable housing plan, how the cost gets determined is through a formula. It's not as simple as the 20%. It's a more complicated formula. When we did the Orchard Point, for example, the affordable housing plan we had for that, the attorney gave us an example of how it needs to get calculated. So when we're doing affordable units per that program, it's a little bit different. So the other thing that's different too is whether or not you're doing a for sale product or whether or not you're doing a rental product.
Yeah.
Because they're totally different kinds of projects.
Okay, not to
We,
belabor.
we tend to have for sale, what we've created in our design residence zone and in our senior residence zone, we're creating for some for sale products. The Metro Reality, those are all apartments, those are all rental product. So it's very different how the program gets set up by the developer depending on whether it's a for sale product or not. It's very complicated very quickly, as you can see. And each one of these developments comes with their own affordable housing plan, right? We're starting to standardize those plans so that all the plans look alike, so that they're consistent over time. But this is something that, across the region, we're all kind of working together towards these affordable housing documents and standardizing them, because every time a house comes up that's an affordable unit, it comes back to us, the town, to verify that the price that's being offered meets these requirements. So it's getting very complicated when it's a for sale product.
So who's the referee on that? Like, who-
Right now, the affordable housing documents puts the town, so basically what happens right now is between my office, the Human Services Department, and the town attorney, we kind of come up, and the Department of Housing at the state, they kind of give us the guidelines for that, right? They give us an Excel sheet that we plug in numbers to. But as the market changes, right, a lot of houses that were originally in Clark Estates, for example, they got very low interest rates. When you start applying those numbers today, you can't buy as much house as you could buy back then. That's where these affordable units don't really, they start to get more difficult for people to sell them. And they're really not intended to make any money, but you really don't want to see people lose money on them. So affordable units for sale are definitely things that are, things we have to pay attention to. We're right now, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but right now I'm working with the assessor's office to come up with our own little internal program for a sale when it comes up, making sure that people know that they have these units, like sending out notices annually. You have a unit that if you're gonna sell it, you gotta contact the town, because we don't wanna lose track of these units, right? We don't want them to sell outside of the program. So we're trying to set up some internal measures, but CROG and the region's also talking about doing more of a regional program, which would be very helpful for towns. If we could say, oh, you have a for sale unit, go see so-and-so at the region and have them process these applications, it would be a lot more beneficial for us. Again, things that are rental units, the owners are required to document all this stuff to the state at an annual basis. They have to document their units and how they're offering them for sale and how they're meeting the law. So all these things are getting a little bit more
yeah, so just
bureaucratic and
to put a period on this, just to take an example, and I'll take 22-wheeler. So houses are for sale for $750,000. An affordable house there is not necessarily $750,000 minus 20%.
no, it's gonna be around $350,000. It's gonna be based on this other formula.
All right.
Yep. That's not a set-aside development. That's a development that we're requiring affordable units be created in it.
Okay.
It's not an 830G development. Because 830G, they meet certain requirements, which, we're doing the 80% median income people.
Mhm.
This gets to a lower level of people, right? They're not proposing to do that at that project, so that's why it doesn't get the protection of an 830G, the legal protections that it has if you were meeting the requirements, so. All right, let me keep moving on here. So some of the things that this commission has done, and again, we're required by law to do this, was we created an affordable housing plan. You're gonna find this new law that just was passed will sunset this plan in 2027. So all your good work here will be good until 2027. But we also, in that plan, we talked about creating an advisory committee. The Affordable Housing Advisory Committee has now been kind of coupled into the Fair Rent and Housing Committee. They do the fair rent portion of it, as well as they have some, let me get to, I'll get to some but they also do some promotion of affordable housing. We're just starting to talk about that. So in other words, when you have this housing trust fund, you create some money that goes into the housing trust fund. They would be the body that would advise how that money should be spent. So there was an ordinance put in place for them that takes into the fair rent portion of the town's requirement of having a fair rent commission and the portion of the affordable housing. That was one of the reasons I presented this to them.
Does the Fair Rent Commission report in under town council, or are they
It's the town
standalone?
council, it's an ordinance that was created by the town council and it reports to the town council. But, you know, for example, I sit on it as an ex-official, human service director does, town attorney does.
You're meeting regularly now?
We are meeting regularly, we have our first complaint, so
Wonderful.
we'll be meeting on it.
Awesome.
I didn't mean to make it sound exciting.
I'm sorry, you said to decide how that money should be spent? What
So-
money is that?
So through your subdivision regulations, well, that's a good segue into what we're just gonna talk about. So one of the things that we also did as a commission is we put inclusionary zoning in our regulations. What inclusionary zoning does is it allows you to require affordable housing units with residential housing. So you put this into your regulation. So now what you have is you have the requirement in any multifamily development that a minimum of 15% of the units will be affordable. The other requirement you put in was in your subdivision regulations. This is where you're gonna get the money. So this is if you do a subdivision, you create 3 or more new building lots, there's a formula that gets applied. And the formula is a fee in lieu of affordable housing. So instead of providing affordable units, there's a fee that's gonna get paid. This fee goes into a housing trust fund, which the town has set up. I make this, the analogy to the same thing that you have in your regulations where you have an open space, fee in lieu of open space provision, where if a developer's not providing open space and it's required, they pay a fee, and it goes into a fund. The fee in lieu of fund, I can tell you, I'd like to put this on the record, it had over $300,000 in it, and that was the money that was used to create the Mitchell Fairground. So these funds do over time collect enough money that have some meaning, and that's what this housing trust fund, for example, the Casarino subdivision was the first one you approved. I think there's like $50,000 when those COs would be issued would be in it. You have another development coming up, if we're approved, would have another $50,000. So over time, this funds could build up, and the idea is it would be used towards some promotion of affordable housing, whether it's the town creating affordable housing in partnership with someone, or, you know, some other, and that's what I'm talking about, that's what this committee would be involved. There's no program yet because there's no money yet, but there's other communities around the state that have housing trust funds, and, you know, they have money come into it for a variety of different ways. You know, sometimes people die and put money into it, you know, but they do have ways where they're helping people to create more affordable units, restricting units and that kind of thing, so that's what the money would be for. So we put these regulations in place both in your zoning and your subdivision, again, trying to create the affordable units that the state is looking for you to create. So this kind of goes to the Fair Rent Housing Committee, Stephanie, we're talking about. So this is their ordinance. And this, I just kind of took a piece of it out of it. So they're kind of where clearinghouse of affordable housing ideas would be stored. One of the things that I am trying to build with this, or hoping is, you know, things like the berry patch, they're 40 years deed restricted. Well, we're on year 25 now, 30. You know, these things need to be tracked because 40 years will come, and if you don't have them deed restricted, then they fall off of your affordable count, right? So I'm trying to build something in that these things are, you know, are somewhere that people are gonna track them, and as we move forward in time, I mean, housing's becoming a bigger issue for communities to have to take care of. So, building a clearinghouse where all this information is stored. I'm gonna show you on the website right now, under the planning department, you can find information about all the affordable housing we have currently that contributed to the moratorium that we have. Deed restrictions, all the information's there. So, you know, we've kept it in one place, and we're trying to keep building it up so that people.
Quick question, do the real estate agents or the real estate attorneys factor in when a unit comes up for sale, They see in the deed that it's restricted, do they have any onus on,
They have an obligation
They
to,
do,
yeah,
okay.
and the obligation is to come to the town to
Okay.
determine the price.
so there's another catch?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. What my fear is that, and I love attorneys, I work with them all the time, but, title searches don't always get done the earliest time, and if someone's not reminding whoever's selling it that they have an affordable unit, they can quickly lose sight of them,
Sure.
right? You don't have the deed restriction reference in the deed, and it's still in effect because it's on record, but, that's why we'd like to get into an annual notification.
Oh,
So, currently we only have 9, but as we get more of them, and notice in the beginning of the year, just saying, hey, just a reminder, you have an affordable unit, if you're going to be deciding it, here's information, how to contact us, that kind of thing.
So if you've got, if, let's say you buy a unit and it's an affordable unit and there's still 10 years left on the unit, after those 10 years, can I now resell it but not at an affordable price? I could sell it for the higher price? Would be a good way to invest and make money. If I stay in it
If you
though,
live to 140, yeah.
if, not quite, I'm almost there. If I stay in the unit though, does it stay categorized as affordable?
It is
As far as the
affordable as
count
far as,
goes?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
But, so after the 40
I'm sorry, after 40 years, so no, it would fall off.
so that
No,
means your
there's a date.
taxes,
even if I'm
State-
the same owner and
Yeah,
staying in the
state
house and
tracks the
everything,
date of our
Ah,
affordable
okay.
unit,
so
yeah, 'cause
your
there's a
value
date.
of your home will,
immediately
Right.
goes up.
yeah, your tax, you'll get it when you get your tax bill, you'll be like, what the hell just happened? And it's gonna
Yeah.
be 'cause-
Okay.
Unless somehow there's a program to renegotiate the affordability on these units, right?
So basically, as we know how long it takes, and we've been doing our due diligence and approvals and whatnot for the affordable, and we're at 6 point,
Yeah, we'll get to that right
6,
now.
3,
Whatever-
4,
whatever it
something
may
like
be.
that, yeah.
Right here, your
Yeah, but as
6.54.
as things drop off, like you were saying, things that are starting to 25 years or whatever it may be, we're never gonna get the 10%. And, I mean, it's just, I don't see it. But as units fall off, our number could like,
And the next census comes up.
yeah, so you're chasing your tail the whole time with this, what Lamont put in place, basically, is what it.
Well, except for part of the law is gonna be review of the 830G law. Part of this law here to see if the 10% numbers, because again, you're gonna be giving another set of numbers pretty soon, right? And these 830G numbers, I'm not sure how they're gonna match up with that, so there's some discussion. There's a committee that's put together that's supposed to report back on some information related to it.
At the legislative level?
Yeah, at the legislative level, yeah. So will 830G change in the future and
I
will
would
this
hope so.
law kind of come into play when you start to get your units assigned to you? That's kind of to be seen, I think. So this is kind of where we are currently. This is based on 2024, that's the latest list there is. But, I guess I just wanted to point out from this is, we get our units a bunch of different ways. So we get them through rental assistance, we get them through government assistance, that's like the berry patches of the Watson Farms and whatnot. Deed restricted units, that's the ones in Clark Estates, Schoolhouse Drive. This is a real, CHFA mortgages, that's just like such a variable, if you don't have a lot of CHFA mortgages in your town, you don't have a high number. I mean, it's almost like you wanna have a bank promote this stuff or something, because that can come and go very easily. So, that's where we are right now. So if you were to do it straight 10%, you're looking at 387 units that you would need.
Michelle, excuse me, 10% of what?
Of your housing units.
In other words, that's saying that there are,
You have 10,804 housing units. That's your census housing.
that includes homes and
Apartments, condos,
everything.
Everything.
addresses, we have 10,804 addresses,
As of 2020.
residential addresses.
Yeah, this is a 2020 census number, yeah.
2020.
Well,
Do we know what that is today?
given that a lot of them are
25?
just private homes that someone got a builder to build for them,
Correct.
well, it doesn't make sense that the 10% goal would apply to them.
Well,
It's not a
welcome
development.
We
to-
gotta find a
welcome to the
denominator
law.
Trying to
somewhere.
apply logic to the
This
legal
is why,
system, all you're gonna do
we
is
look
get
at
a
our
headache.
town as an outlier, like, we have done our job.
And this gives you an idea of like, I was saying, although we haven't built any, we've approved some. So these are ones that are kind of like quote unquote on the books to move forward. So we all know Geisler's is, who knows, right? Longleaf Development, the one behind Evergreen Walk, I'm not quite sure if we're gonna see construction this year or not, I haven't heard definitively. 240 Deming, they pulled building permits, so you definitely will see 240 Deming go up. Orchard Point, they're under construction currently too, so you will see, so we will be seeing some of these units coming online.
What did you say about the Sullivan Avenue Plaza?
Well, it has its approval for a zone change and a general plan, but it would still need to come in for a site plan and a special exception, and I'm not hearing any
No.
new activity at this moment, so I don't, it's there for the taking.
It's
of
also
it.
Geisler's?
It's Geisler,
Okay.
it's a Geisler play, yeah.
Two different names, okay.
He
Yeah.
ought to be on that.
I did
list of
calculate the
speakers.
points down below here, just to give you an idea that, you know, there are two ways that you look at this, as points and units, but again, we're far from points. And the only reason I bring up the points is part of the new law tries to give you some incentives to do things for more points.
Right.
So you can, just to have a relationship, so. This is kind of what's next here in town, you know, we just changed our Buckland Gateway South Overlay Zone, that's got a 15% affordable housing unit in it. As I mentioned, I'm working with the assessor's office and the town attorney to try to tighten up our resale process so that we can do this effectively. Housing Trust Fund, again, as funds get in it, be working with the housing committee to do that. This is something I do want to tell you about, the CROG initiative. So I'm part of a study that CROG is doing on housing, and they are going to be doing a very, very high-level study of our two housing authority properties for potential redevelopment, development of units. It's part of, they're doing them in several communities. So I've been communicating with Merrick Kozakowski as the chair, and I went to them last fall and let them know about this. So in April, I think we're slated. And again, it's just gonna be a real high level, looking at some mapping and some regulations and whatnot. But if anybody recalls, when we did our housing study, we always identified those as underutilized properties that could potentially support more affordable housing. So that's one of the areas, you know, the new law is looking for housing authorities to, you know, step up and.
Plus the land, right?
There's some
Vacant
land on
land.
Open Road too,
There's
so.
land.
So that is something that will be coming up in April timeframe. And then I did give you the new address of the bill, which, you know, we will talk about next, which is a 94-page bill, so I didn't bring a copy of it, but I can send it to you electronically if you want.
All good.
Thanks anyway.
So that's kind of my affordable housing spiel. I know the 830G is a little, you know, fortunately for us, we haven't had to grapple with it. When and if we do, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it, but, you know, the percentages and that kind of stuff is all gonna be on the developer to provide to you if they were to propose that
So,
application.
not to keep beating this affordable housing portion of it, but as far as that 10% that's out there, the legislative body that's meeting now, they're not looking to increase that number. Are they?
Well, again, we can get, well, we can get talking about the new law, when we get talking about the housing growth plans, you know, that's where you're gonna be talking about getting a new number, right? You're gonna be giving a number, and it's gonna be an affordable number, and I don't really
7%
know.
for South Hills there. that's
A
what I'm saying.
percentage number or a unit?
I think it's a number. My understanding is it'll be a unit number.
Yeah, that's,
That's what
the
you're.
next part of the discussion is this, right?
This-
And
Yeah, so-
that's what this is
This
gonna
is the
take us to.
94-page thing down into a
What percentage of
summarized.
the towns
perfect
in
piece of paper.
Connecticut comply with the 10%?
Funding.
All the
I
big
would
towns.
say, let's see, there's 169 towns, I would say probably about 25 of them.
Of all the towns in the state, 25 actually
Yeah.
comply with
You
the
know,
10%.
I have that chart, I'll send it to you.
And they're most,
Yeah.
and you know, you pretty much, you can name them all.
You like
Yeah, I would
Vernon
think so,
does,
but-
and, you
Vernon,
know,
Meriden, East
East
Hartford,
Hartford.
Hartford, West,
Yeah.
it's,
They're
you
the
you
more-
can spew them,
more urban areas.
you know, but if you
Not
take.
Avon, Simsbury, Glastonbury, blah, blah, blah.
So if we had somebody
Greenwich.
come into Sullivan Avenue Plaza and just built 387 affordable units, we would
We'd
be
be
there.
done.
Okay,
But what benefit that, because that's the that's the double-edged sword that will haunt us forever, is that we know we need a new high school, like, it goes so
Right,
far
right,
beyond us,
right.
is that if we build 387 affordable units, we're so screwed, we can't get out of it.
The town will go
We'll
bankrupt.
go bankrupt.
Yep.
Like, we just
Just
can't
schools.
afford, we'd have a paid fire department, it just would explode on us,
Yep.
so.
What a great plan.
Any other,
Yeah, suppose 4 years from now, the numbers don't change from the state. And 4 years from now, our affordable housing is still at 6.5. What happens?
nothing happens, it's just you continuously are subject to an 830G application coming in. In other words, someone proposing a housing project somewhere in your town that you don't particularly wanna see it, and you are on the onus to approve it unless
Okay.
there's a health safety.
Okay.
So it does nothing, I
So
mean, you've been.
that's the step.
That is the step, that's correct, that's correct. And as there's more pressure to create this housing, will you see that happen, that's the question.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so this next part, going into the law, I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. My professional organization, the Connecticut American Planning Association, sponsored this and put this together, and this slide deck is theirs, or, people that were part of it. So I wanted to give them credit for that. So basically, this is a recap of the law. Like I said, it was 104 pages. It's a very lengthy law. I can send it to anybody that would like it. It does lots of things besides land use and zoning changes. It does, other things that I'm not gonna really get into, but, there's a lot of things in the law. We're gonna kind of focus on things that affect us and things that affect us the quickest, more than anything today. But I did wanna let you know a couple other things. So there's some changes to the parking requirements we're gonna talk about. This is for multifamily parking. The as of right summary view, this is talking about with the requirement of allowing what they call transit housing, middle housing in your commercial zones. There's new incentive programs, and then there's the housing growth plans, and that's the big chart that you have there. So those are just some of the things that we'll talk about. Some of the other changes, just to know, that are out there. Fair rent commissions, we have one in our town, but they did change the population, so there's more of them that are gonna come online for smaller towns. You know how we have protest petitions for zoning where it's a 20% people have to sign a protest petition to force a 2/3 majority vote on a zone change application? The law, now it's 50%. So in other words, it's more difficult for the protest petition to force a majority vote on a planning and zoning application.
We ever had one of those?
You had one on the 240 Deming project. As a matter of fact. It wasn't valid, but they did file one. Yeah. So that's changed to 50%, so that does have an impact. There's nothing we need to change in our regulations, but it is a change. Zoning for manufactured homes, that's essentially telling us that we can't discriminate against mobile home parks. You have to allow that kind of housing. And a ban on hostile architecture, I find this interesting. You can't put bus shelters that don't allow people to sit and lay down on them. Design them so that they're hostile, so.
We're taking care of everybody here.
What's that?
I said, we're taking care of everybody
Yeah.
here.
So this is some things that this group I was in have already created the problems, right? So these are some issues that they're gonna be looking to have addressed that are either confusing or they're already having problems with. And the 16-unit multifamily, it says under 16 and over 16, and it doesn't say what you do with 16. It's like, oh, okay. Anyhow, there's some references they want changed. The summary review, again, summary review is kind of equating to a site plan review, not a special exception review, but a site plan review. But again, there's some clarification around that we'll talk about in a minute. This middle housing allowance in commercial and mixed-use zones, again, this is where they're saying that you shall allow it up to 9 units in commercial zones. And my first question is, okay, how many times? Like if you've got 10 different owners in a general commercial zone, does each owner get it? Or, there's zero guidance along those kinds of things, so.
Is this part of the right of,
These are part of the questions that this
Oh.
group is already raising on that,
Okay.
because when you look at the law, it's just not clear. Having said all that, we will be getting this document from CROG, and I'm gonna send it to you when I get it, so this is just kind of precursor to it. So the other big part of the law that we're gonna talk about, and this is this housing growth plan, and this is this document here. So you're gonna notice that it's very nicely color-coded, and towns don't have any decisions that they really have to do until June of 2027. That doesn't mean that towns don't need to be doing anything till then, because one of the things you're gonna have to do in June 2027 is make a very quick decision whether or not you're gonna go along with the regional plan, or that you're gonna wanna have your own town plan. So you're almost gonna wanna be doing parallel work with what the region's doing to see what their plan is gonna look like. So this has, all these boxes come out of the law, so there's all this stuff that's built into the law, that the OPM is the Office of Policy and Management, Mark. So OPM, that's the Office of Policy and Management, so that's the state office that's kind of guiding this whole thing. The COGS or the CROGS are the regional agencies, there's 9 of them in Connecticut that all have towns under them, so that's the structure. So basically, the state's gonna create the number of units that we need, and it's gonna distribute to the COGS, and the COGS are gonna distribute to the towns, is really how it's gonna work. And during this time, they're gonna determine how they're gonna determine what you as a community can have by coming up with what your developable land is in your community. And they're gonna come up with what those parameters are. So one of the things that happens, I think by July of 2026, they're gonna develop the tools that are gonna be used. So once we know how the state's gonna determine developable land in our town, I can take those tools to our GIS and we can do a parallel kind of thing. So, because at the end of the day, what the state's gonna do is say, okay, South Windsor, we think based on what you have that you can do X number of units. And we're gonna have our own idea of what we can think. And if we think we don't wanna go along with that, we can come up with our own set of numbers, but then you're gonna see in this right-hand side of this column, then you're kinda on your own to justify it, to go and you go through the process on your own. It's not saying that you have to agree with the region's number, it's just if you don't. So it's kind of one of these things where I think you wanna go along the process until you know what you're being dealt with, right? And I'm hoping there'll be more clarity as we move forward, and we'll know much more as planners as you're in the middle of this process.
When you say developable land in South Windsor and how many units could be built, is it based on our regulations or something
It's gonna be
else?
based on they're gonna come up with how they decide developable land is. So one of the things that South Windsor has that is gonna really impact us is we have a lot of land that we own, but it's restricted. It was either open space that got through a subdivision.
town
it was
owns?
Yeah, the town owns.
Okay.
So, those pieces are off the table. The law says you don't have to count that as developable land. So, you start to wonder what are you gonna be looking in your I-291? Where do we have developable land? Is what the question. And it's not just, this is what I don't get it. It's not just gonna be town-owned land. It's gonna be land.
Privately owned.
Privately or town-owned.
That has no houses on it now.
Correct.
Even
What
if
if it
somebody
was a
has no
golf-
intent of selling it, if somebody owns
What if it
between
was a
Beelzebub and
business?
Ellington Road, there is a tract of land that's back there that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's privately owned, and that will be subject to, if it goes
How can
up for
they force the
sale.
owner to
They
do-
can't. So nothing, none of this is about forcing you to do
It's not.
anything.
Okay,
All this is
all right.
about planning at this point,
All
right?
right, coming up with a number.
And you're gonna plan they wanna have you plan for units that they're gonna determine. And then there's a lot of things in here about if you do these kinds of things, you can qualify for this. So in other words, that's where they're gonna say, and I'm just gonna give you an example. Let's just say our plan is that we really wanna intensify our town center, but we don't have adequate sewer for that. Okay, we're gonna put plans in place to do that. Now we can go apply to the state to get more money to upgrade our sewers. That's what they're trying to, they're trying to entice towns where you want it. Okay, we're gonna give you the tools so you can do it. That's the approach that this law has taken. And you'll see that there's several of programs that are not funded yet, but will be funded as time goes on, related to infrastructure, related to school reimbursement. If you do certain kinds of housing, kinds of things, you can get a higher rate of school reimbursement. So that's what this program this law really has in it right now, is more incentives to do things. It's having you create different kinds of zones. Like if you create a certain kind of zone, which allows a higher density of a certain type of housing, you get more points towards your affordable housing moratorium. So I mean, they've built in these, it's very complicated. But the long and short of it is there's not penalties that have been built into this yet. It's more of like, these are opportunities that you will have if you create these kinds of things.
Two questions. So July 2026 isn't that far away.
Mhm.
Could we consider shortly, like, something like a subcommittee to work with you on identifying quote-unquote developable land?
Sure, once those parameters came out, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea, because like I said, GIS person would be involving and,
And then the second question, I think I asked you, and I don't remember the answer. Could they do something like look at the town and say, well, this tract is right now zoned industrial. We think you should change the zone to residential and
I
make
don't
it
think
develop-"
that's the intent of what this is about.
Okay,
They're not really micromanaging down to that level,
well, that's good.
that I can tell.
Does it look like they're gonna hit their March 1st deadline with the first piece?
I think, to be honest with you, I think, Rebecca Auger, who is the planner at OPM, was honest about those things probably slipping a little bit. Those deadlines, just because it's a lot, they're being asked to do a lot in a very short period of time, so.
If that slips, does our July 1st,
I think everything on here is, like to be determined if it's
Subject to
gonna, yes.
change.
I'm guessing it may be, but everybody's very energized and very much
Sure.
working forward with it.
Right.
Well, just that this document that I keep promising you, I was told early January, and what we're in the middle of February, I'm told this week, and what it's supposed to be is a comprehensive breakdown of the law and what communities should think of doing related to it. So it's gonna be a very valuable document, and it's, all the cogs are putting out it together so that one message gets sent out, from the municipalities. But it will give us some more guidance, so. It may answer some of the questions that I can't answer for you tonight, for sure.
So we have to make this decision at some point, whether we
Want to go along with the regional
along with
plan
the
that they've
regional
come up with?
or do our own. And the regional is the whole entire Hartford cog?
No, they're gonna be doing one for our town. They're gonna create a plan for each town.
We're gonna see what's best for us in their eyes.
As far as I understand it, the region's gonna be given a set of numbers, and those numbers are gonna get broken down into towns
To each town in the region.
based on some parameters.
We have, 31 towns in our cog?
36, I think, maybe,
36?
38, somewhere around there.
So we'll have our choice, is that it? We can
You can either,
just do it for South Windsor or,
No. It's, the region's gonna come up, our regional agency is gonna come up with a plan for South Windsor based on a certain number of units that they've been getting from the state.
okay.
We as a town are gonna be able to say, oh, we think those units are too low, we wanna create more. We would,
Sure.
funny.
Sure we
It's
do.
funny, isn't it?
Yeah,
we would have an opportunity to,
yeah.
but then you kind of are doing, things a little bit more, I don't wanna say on your own, but kinda on your own.
So for example, Vernon's at 10%. Would they have a number to increase? go
So
beyond?
there's a certain number of communities that fall into a certain group, and I think it's based on the wealth of the community, that are not required to prepare these plans. They're required to do planning that keeps their affordable units affordable. So there is some planning, but it's not quite the same as, there's a carve out for certain communities that are not, I forget what they call them, but they do spell them out. And again, if you wanna read the law, you're welcome to read it, it's all in there.
No,
Yeah.
can you say that one more time? Of certain towns because of their wealth?
No, because of their lack of wealth,
Oh,
really.
okay, I was like, okay.
So,
Lack thereof, okay.
Yeah.
so the housing bill not only covers housing that is currently under development, but also housing that is currently existing and is trying to keep prices low, right?
Trying to preserve existing housing, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, like, if we try to make more affordable housing, the bill will also, any future attempts to try to maintain that 10% and to keep more affordable housing wherever, right?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm
the
sorry.
question.
I'm just trying to clarify. Trying to clarify. So, there's going. The bill will cover future affordable housing. I'm mixing up my words. Sorry.
Yeah, the bill is to encourage communities to create more affordable housing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what the
and-
whole goal behind it
yeah.
is, yeah.
I'm just focusing on like maintaining affordability.
You
too.
can't, you have 40 years, if you have a unit that's affordable, that affordable component stays with that home condo for 40 years.
Mm.
So, again, yes, we have some places in town that are 25 years old and they're aging out, but once they hit that 40, we don't get to keep that credit for it, we need to.
I do know that the ones that, you know, like the Berry Patches of the world, the state housing, Department of Housing does have those on their radar. And they are the ones that, you know, that we're really will look to negotiate those, because those were state monies that they got. So the state has a vested interest in seeing that. It's probably more the units that we get would be more, you know, more difficult, but,
Is
those are ways away.
Is there ever a time, like, I mean, maybe this is my ignorance, but the CROG, when they do our plan, they sit in a room and come up with what they think is best for us, right? That's their idea. Do we get to meet with them, or they just hand us a plan and go, this,
I'm guessing this July 26th, when the parameters get given to the, you know, the COGS, we'll know about them. I mean, we have a very good working relationship with them. I have no reason to believe that we're not gonna be hand in hand with them up until the point we decide, no, we're not in agreement with you, or we're not. I mean, it would be in our best interest to do it that way, because if it's
So-
something that's agreeable, why not let them do the heavy lift, right?
right,
You know?
let them, yes, exactly. But as far as the 10%, and I don't know if we're privy to it or whatever, but they must look, like the presentations we've been getting from Kate and whatnot, they have to be to the understanding, when they look at us, they must go, okay, this one's a little different. Like, or they don't.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way, I know
I
they're
understand the
aware,
health
I know they're aware of our situation, there's no question about that, but I don't know what their parameters are for deciding unit counts into communities. But we should be able, I mean, again, that's stuff that we should be able to find out as it moves forward.
Or plead our case to, before they come up with the, like,
You know, again, it's coming
I
down
doubt
from the
it, right?
top, and then it's coming down, and then it's coming down, so
and
as
they have a
soon
lot of
as-
work to do with 169 towns, I get it, but.
Not to jump ahead, but at the end of the day, this whole plan is about a carrot, not a stick.
At this
right?
time, it is
If-
correct.
If we do everything that they want, there's gonna be money for us.
They're gonna put some programs in
If,
place,
if,
and you'll be able
if
to
we
fund some
choose
things.
not to or can't for whatever reason, then there's not money for us.
No,
I
but,
mean, isn't that kind of where this whole thing ends up?
excuse me, but from what Michelle said,
So
there
it's
is a
not
stick.
punitive
There is a stick.
necessarily.
If we didn't meet these goals, then there could be a noxious development that we didn't want, that we'd be forced to accept. Is
Yeah, you have
right?
that, you've had that for a long
Yeah,
time, the
I've seen
AWGs,
that
you've got
since
that all the
October.
They could come into us
24.
tomorrow with that. And
Yeah, they could do that now.
But if we hit the 10% goal,
then you don't
we could
have
say
that
no.
anymore. Correct.
Correct, that's right.
Or if we get the moratorium.
387 units.
yeah.
So as complicated as this is, you know, we do have a little bit of time, and we certainly will be, you know, Prague is gonna keep us abreast to what they're doing, because, you know, they wanna,
And this is like, even, not to go off the rails on us, but like, let's say Ellington or a neighboring town. And they don't have sewer through everywhere, they don't have city water through their town. Well, we don't either, we have a couple of holes. But they're gonna go to Matt Reed, hey, you gotta get up to 10%. And,
well, you know, then there's the question of a developer willing to build it. I mean, you know, you can say we want it all we want, but if you don't have the dynamic in your community that's going to create it.
Right.
Or the demand in that community.
Exactly,
You know,
or, you
it's
know,
not on a rail,
and
it's not
sometimes,
on
yeah,
a-
right, or you don't
Someone's
have the
gotta put their
downtown. you have-
shekels on the table.
So there's
Right.
more to it than just a number, really.
Build it,
So,
they will come,
it'll be
yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah, and 830G couldn't come in here and make us put sewers in and make us put water in.
No, but they could do it.
They
They
could
could
do it, but
fund
they
it.
couldn't make us do it.
No.
correct.
No.
That's where, when we went last year, it was myself, Mike, and who went to that meeting last year down at
Oh, the,
Equator.
AquaTurf?
There were towns that were like, we don't, they had like I forgot the name of the town, it's out there somewhere, but they didn't even have a sewer treatment plant. Like,
Yeah,
they're like-
well, then you get into community septic systems and things like
Yeah.
that, and they're complicated to design and cost a lot of money. You know, and then there's the question of, do you really wanna put people out away from services that have no access to you know, there's a lot of issues around affordable housing.
Goes both ways, yeah.
So I promise to keep you posted as things move
Yep.
forward and any information that's of value because, you know, we were really encouraged to stick with the CROGS until we know that it's not a good deal for your community because they have the best information for us moving forward at this point. So, that's what I'm counting on. All right, let's just see. So this is a separate document. So let me get out of this. You can barely see.
Want the glasses?
No, I don't want to do that.
Smart.
All right, we're in here. Okay, now let's get- So there's your housing. So interesting, we are in the region that has it due on June 1st of 2028. That's when our housing growth plan is due. So we've got 2 years. When your other one is sunsetting, so this part of the state has it later. This is talking about the appealing of the growth plan, or the current one.
Pick your own adventure.
Yeah, so this is your choice. You either go on your own or you go to the region. So we'll keep you posted on that. These are just some of their slides. Big development municipal's affordable housing goals to summary. So again, they're looking for us to create things by as of right, you know, site plan, things like that, which we'll see. All right, so I'm not gonna get too much more into that. There's a lot of more. This is the other thing this is the thing that's probably of the most urgency from our perspective, and probably the thing we know the least about. And I've talked to the town attorney on 2 different occasions, and he and I are gonna be getting together about this to get some more clarity. But basically what this is telling you need to do is you need to create housing developments, 2 to 9 units, or mixed-use developments allowed as of right in a commercial zone. So when I look at our town, I say a commercial zone, I say restricted commercial, general commercial, Buckland Gateway Zone. I-291 allows commercial development, all of our overlay zones that allow for commercial. So you do have quite a few zones that would qualify as a commercial zone. Basically, your industrial doesn't. And this definition of summary review is what I would equate it to as a site plan review, right? So you can put in parameters like setbacks and things like that, but you could not make it be a special exception. You couldn't, you know, there's gonna be limited things that you can do. So up until this point, you could choose to do these things in a transit community, and you could allow them in residential uses, and you could create zoning like this. And, you know, you could get extra points, equivalent points. What you're gonna be required to do as of July 1st is you're gonna have to allow the development of these developments. So, when I think of this, I think of any general commercial lot you have. And when you have a piece, let's just take anyone on Sullivan Ave that's vacant, that's general commercial. Does that mean it qualifies for 9 units?
You know what it makes me think
Doesn't
of?
matter the size of the building either.
There's very little guidance in this law. So like, this is what they talk about, this is how they define transit community middle housing. Duplexes, quadplexes, 1 building with 9, and even, you know, one even does a village setting, which would be 9 small units, but cottage clusters,
But that's in one, so just, if, say, let's pick Sullivan Avenue, and I'm not gonna say anything because we're on the record, but there's one building, one full connected building cannot exceed 9 units. So,
or new construction, right? So it's not
or
existing.
new construction,
Or a mixed use.
okay.
But this was originally meant to help all the businesses that sent their people home, right? All the,
I think it was kind of originally tried to,
During
you know,
COVID,
maybe
you know,
some
the
of
work
our
from home, so
strip
they had all
malls that
these-
are hurting, things like
Places
that, to
open.
give them some opportunity. You know, some periphery businesses that weren't
Right.
surviving, some opportunity there, and to create housing. I mean, that's obviously a big goal of this law, is to create more
So,
housing.
and I'm gonna specifically mention one, but the People's Bank on Ellington, okay, right on the corner of Clark. So we know there's a couple businesses in there right now, but I don't think they're using the whole building. And I know.
Rockville Bank,
Was it Rockville? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
actually, I
sorry.
believe the whole building is being used.
Oh, it is being used?
I believe so.
Oh,
I believe
okay.
there's a work group, like, you know, like a workspace group up in.
Let's say it wasn't, and the
Okay,
third
yeah.
floor was open.
Right.
Could this law apply?
in theory.
Okay.
So again, as I said in the beginning, what I don't know is to what extent, you know, does every property owner have an entitlement to it? Is it, you know, is there a percentage of units within your zone? This is where, so, and everybody has these similar questions. So what I've done is CROG put out to communities, hey, if you wanna be a community that's a test case, let us know. So I let them know that I've drafted something, I've started to draft something, but I need more guidance.
Okay.
Basically, what I did is, we have a mixed-use regulation. We've never seen it used, but one time it was never built, but it was approved. And it applies right now currently in our general commercial zone and your restricted commercial zone. Probably the only two zones right now. But it allowed you to create, apartments on a commercial site. Bob Urso had one approved across from Webster Bank years and years ago, back in like '07. So I took that regulation, I started tweaking it, you know, because we had thought about a lot of things about commercial and residential at that time, you know, separating distances, we thought about storage and things like that. So I'm kind of using that as a, you know, boilerplate. But again, you know, where I have to have it apply, do I have to, you know, Buckland Gateways, I mean, if you're saying commercial zones, that's what you're talking about. So, you know, some of the thinking is that, you know, builders that do small little projects, this will be a nice little niche for them to do, you know, 9 units here or whatever. But, you know, communities like ours, where you have a lot of fringe properties that are right near your residential areas, you could see them being potentially desirable for something like that.
So like, I don't know, I'll put it out there, but if you go up to where, you know, like the Red Cabin and the country.
That whole area there, that back
That
in
whole
Pine Gap.
plaza where the bar used to be in the corner, like, you could they could still have the bakery and the storefronts on that, and then the rest of it could be
9 units back there.
9 units.
Isn't,
You know, to be honest with you, I know we don't, you have questions of how many units we want, but to me, that wouldn't be a bad application of it. Because you've
That's
got
the only
residential.
place to me, like,
That it look-
I'm putting my head up and down, you know, trying to think, where would that come
Well, I
into play?
think of like over Pleasant Valley area, Route 5 area, you know, that area there that we just rezoned general commercial, you have a mix. You know, anywhere you have kind of a mix of residential currently, you know, you might have a desire
Little
for
pockets here and there.
all those properties along Deming Street, in restricted commercial zone.
isn't there also an open question as to how many clusters of 2 to 9 units?
Well, that's what I'm saying, the law doesn't tell you that, those are some, I think, some of the questions that
So
I
it's
know
not
that
just 2 to 9, it could be 2 to 9 3 times.
times whatever, that's what I
Right.
don't know.
That's what my original question was,
Yeah.
can you do, if it's one property, you're maxed out at 9. You can't,
Right.
you can't just say,
But
oh,
you know
I'm
how
gonna
many
follow
little
this law.
properties we have next to
Right,
each other with
right.
different owners, and
Yeah.
that's
I
where
could see
go.
somebody taking a building, splitting it into, oh, we'll saw the thing into 3 rather than, you know,
Yeah.
1, and we'll have 9, 9, and 9. We can't
what's-
do that.
Interesting, you're not required to do any affordable units, however, I would recommend that we do.
Oh,
because-
hell yes.
Why not, right? So, this again, you can do things like put in setbacks, lot sizes, building frontage, you know, that kind of stuff, but.
We need to get started on that right away.
Well, like I said, I've drafted something and I've talked to the town attorney about it, and, you know, we're kind of both waiting for CROG's advice on this, because this is really not clear. I mean, you look at the law and you won't get an answer. So I don't know if they're gonna try to fix it in this session, you know, get some more clarity on it, which I think there's been a lot of discussion about it. Or if you're gonna have to have people apply for it and get denied in the court, make rule, you know what I mean, that you hate to do business like that. But I agree, July 1st, should have something in place for it in the event somebody wants to do it, so. We'll have a future meeting in the next month where we'll probably look at a draft maybe or something like that. Once I know the zones we have to apply it to and if we can put any kind of parameters to narrow it. But again, I'm modeling after the mixed use regulation, if you wanna take a look at
Because you
it.
gotta be fair to the neighbors that abut these things as well, and that's the,
Right, cause you're not gonna be able to do anything by special exception, so, these are just some things to consider, about it, they were just giving us some information. So then the other stuff that we should know about is the parking, so basically they have changed it so that you as a local community, if it's a project under 16 spaces, you can't have a parking requirement. It's not to say, you can't deny an application based on lack of parking, is really what it's coming down to. So, there's some sections in our regulations that we're gonna have to look at, and then when you do regulate so what they're doing in towns is like, if you're putting in a small development and you say that I have enough parking on street and in, you know, the 4 or 12 spaces I'm providing, and you can document that you do through a parking study, towns have to allow it. So what they're doing in towns where on-street parking is a real problem, they're allowing you to create 2 areas of your town where you're calling them parking, traffic mitigation districts. So you're basically, and there's all sorts of criteria on how you create these things.
this is the
Do you know how
people
much
we pay
percentage
in
they
that
can
state
make?
cap, just to let you know.
So I don't know if we need to be concerned about that, but I will tell you that on-street parking is allowed anywhere in town here. It's not prohibited. I mean, even on Avery Street, you could have on-street parking.
Really?
Yeah, which has always shocked me.
That's an accident waiting.
Maybe
I
we
know,
need
I
meters
know
as a
There we
revenue
go.
source.
That's a great idea.
Revenue source.
So
Thank you, West Hartford.
Parking
Yeah.
meters.
I don't know if we really need, if we need to be too concerned about creating a traffic mitigation district, but we'll look at it, what advice we're given.
Let's see the people that come up with this stuff.
So again, this is one of some of the reasons why you wanna do it is you're gonna get some reimbursement money potentially, some water for
Keep it. yeah.
water, sewer, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that's all the slides I got for you. Again, there's a lot more to it, I just didn't wanna overwhelm you, but I did wanna make you aware of, basically the 2 to 9 units and the parking are 2 things that we will wanna work on pretty quick and put some regulations in place for that stuff, so. I will be happy to send anybody this whole slide deck that I have, which has more, and the law too, if you want it electronically. Be glad to email it to you.
Got that from Mike.
The other thing you can choose to do, you can put the 104 pages through AI, which I did, and you get a nice page and a half summary, which is basically what Michelle just gave us.
Yeah, I went to AI beforehand.
You have to be careful with that, you have to be
I
specific in
wouldn't know
what
how to
you're
use
asking it to
Right,
summarize.
right.
I'm old school.
I've made that mistake.
Oh, tell me what this says.
It's a little
'cause
scary,
I
isn't it?
couldn't
Yes, I
understand.
don't even, that's good, doesn't even matter.
Question, this is out of left field. This, you'll know the answer, I don't. The, area from Main Street to the river, what is that? Who owns that?
Private property.
All private.
It's all private property, it's like
Even
your
the flood zone.
backyard, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Even the flood zone, still private.
The town owns a little bit down there, but nothing much.
just curious.
There's so much floodplain there too as well that.
Yeah, you just got a new zoning map, and if you see the hatched area, that's basically your
Yeah,
hundred.
that's
About
what
half
it
of
was, yeah.
It's. And, you know, this does prove, like, when we had in our last election, when we had the referendum for the open space funding. That's why this is so important. It's, you know, the selling of the development rights by some of these major landowners and the town being able to purchase the development rights for these large tracts of land. And, you know, the open space task force kinda, we get together and kinda target properties that we feel as though are the most viable to the community, but it's important because this comes at you. That's when you just wanna hang, you wanna just buy the development rights for all of it, somehow afford it and hang a no vacancy sign on this now, because that's.
It would be,
Michelle, is that all you had?
The only other thing, I did wanna let you know that, Vincent Stetson, who had come in front of you about the fire pond. So one of the things that we had to do is check with the state, because it was bought with some state money back in 1960s. Well, we heard from the state.
So this is Niederwerfer.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is Niederwerfer. And you, as I suspected, it's not as simple as, yeah, you can do that. You would have to identify like kind of property, like size, and do, swap, and basically a purchase of more land and put it into open space. And you'd have to get like A2 surveys, and you have to get appraisals. It just really is like, for the half acre that you're talking about. However, I have a peace of mind that if the town wants to pursue it, I've got an idea for it. So. But anyhow, he wanted me to let you know that, here we thought that the state would see it as something that.
So it's on hold?
So it's on hold right now, the town council has to make a decision.
Is this
on it.
coming back to us in any way?
No, it only will come back if the town continues to pursue it and it's a site plan, but yeah.
Or if you
But it was
find-
just
or-
kind of interesting, and it just kind of goes to what I was just saying, how we purchase land or how we got land matters.
Yes.
And, as time goes on and people don't always think of that, it's not always in the deed, it's in the purchase agreements and the restrictions elsewhere. So, I think it's really important that, especially the Open Space Task Force, we have all this stuff mapped. We should add a column as to what restrictions might, because bonding money is one kind of restriction, but federal money purchasing is a whole different kind of restriction. If you do it under a state statute, which is what we did in this situation, so important to know.
How big is that entire track up there where the park?
80-something acres or bigger. Might even be over 100, because there were a couple pieces that were put together.
That's a big, that's a big area.
Big piece, yeah. Yep. So,
Okay.
that's all I have.
Any bonds?
No bonds.
No bonds? Any other business?
No, just that you all should have gotten notice about the 23rd.
Yeah.
The town council, everybody's invited. And there is another event coming up for preservation, that I'll send out to everybody. This is something that the Open Space Task Force and Ag Commission are putting on for, property owners, farmers, for different ideas of preserving land or farming techniques.
Any other business that anybody has?
I also emailed you about the annual conference of the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agencies. You mentioned the AquaTurf, and it's happening again this year on March 26th. If anyone would like to attend, I just need to know by March 24th. So you've got time.
So I volunteered to be the CROG representative. Did someone,
We didn't get an alternate yet, no.
no alternative? Okay. I don't have anything else, so it would be time.
I make a motion to
Someone-
adjourn.
Second.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Michelle.